Welcome to the 7th Annual STAR Lectureship. As you probably know, the STAR Lecture is one of the two named lectureships that the Department of Neurology hosts every year in honor of Professor Arnold Starr, and I'll say a few more things about Arnie later on that. But I am Tehsin Mozaffar. I'm the interim chair of neurology, fresh in this role since August, although I tell people that this is my first week of actually being a chair. On that. But I've been in the department since 2000, and actually Arnie has been instrumental. He doesn't know this, but he's been instrumental in recruiting me to UCI. And I'll tell you that story a little later on that. The Department of Neurology was founded in the 70s, and Dr. Starr was our founding chair. Stan Vandenart, or Professor Vandenart, came here from Cleveland. In the 70s, he was a division chief of neurology, and then became the dean of School of Medicine. And he and Arnie founded the Department of Neurology. And Arnie really grew the department. It became a leader in various aspects of neurology, including clinical neurophysiology, which was Arnie's love. But also, we were one of the pioneers in sleep medicine. And some of the other fields. And Arnie stayed on as the chair till 80s, I believe, on that, and has been around. He also was, and I always was amazed by it because he went emeritus a number of years ago, but kept an active lab and had a active R01 funding from the NIH for the longest while, even after becoming emeritus. The department has grown since then. We are now close to 51 full-time faculty members. On that, the number of research grants have grown. We handle about $15 million in NIH grants, and each of the subspecialties in neurology has really grown, and most of them are at least 3 people deep, probably more in some areas as well. We are now on the national front in a number of diseases, including Alzheimer's, which has always been one of the strengths in the area, but neuromuscular diseases, stroke, as well as movement disorders and epilepsy. And what one of our hopes is, and Nancy will tell you a little bit more about it, is that we can solidify some of the achievements of Arnie into an endowment for the lectureship, but hopefully also for a chair as well in the future. And I think, as you are aware, the University of California Irvine School of Medicine, or College of Health Sciences, was a recipient of a $200 million naming gift, which will grow the institution into bigger and better things, including a specialty hospital on the Irvine campus, specifically for neurology, or for neurosciences and for cancer. On that. So I'm going to have Nancy tell you a little bit more about our efforts as well, and then I'm going to come back and introduce Dr. Starr, and Dr. Starr will in turn introduce Dr. Caramia.
Thank you, Dr. Mozaffar. As he said, I'm Nancy Young. I'm the Director of Development with Health Advancement, supporting the Neurology Department. I work under the jurisdiction of Vice Chancellor for University Advancement, who's Brian Harvey, who also heads the UCI Foundation. I just wanted to say a few words about the importance of giving to UCI Neurology. As Dr. Mozaffar mentioned, we just got a $200 million historic gift from the Samuelis. And this was a very visionary gift. It's going to help create the College of Health Sciences, in which the School of Medicine will be part of. And it's going to help facilitate UCI's mission to improve the health of the whole person and the whole community through integrative medicine. So I wanted to talk about neurology. Our neurologists treat neurological disorders, brain tumors, brain injury, but they also work at the cutting edge of research. For example, identifying disease biomarkers, which will help facilitate preventive medicine, which is part of the whole concept of integrative medicine. And it's only with teaching hospitals and teaching healthcare systems like UCI Health that can truly offer the bench to bedside care. And now it'll be holistic as well. So support from the community in the form of individual gifts is really important, whether it comes from philanthropic individuals or grateful patients. They allow our physician scientists the freedom of unrestricted resources so they can go out and find the cures, train the next generation of doctors, and make a real difference in lives. I have so many stories of just the last 2 years that I've been here in truly inspiring and heartwarming gifts from individuals to the neurology department. So the Arnold Starr Lecture Endowment that Dr. Mozavar mentioned is another example of an opportunity that our community can give to the neurology department to help in innovation and teaching. It's the 40th anniversary of the Department of Neurology. 1977 was the year that Dr. Starr founded the department. It's now 2017. And I was the only one that realized it was 40 years. So it was my idea to create this endowment to honor Dr. Starr and the achievements and contributions that he's given to UCI. And Dr. Mozavar has introduced him and will introduce him again. But this endowment will allow this lectureship to continue in perpetuity. It'll allow us to bring brilliant speakers like Dr. Caramia all the way from Rome, Italy, to come and talk to the community, talk to our faculty, talk to residents, students. I think she's giving a talk tomorrow for the Neurology Grand Rounds, as well as this talk today. So we started the endowment campaign just probably about 2 months ago, not even that. And we already have about 7 donors, and I wanted to just acknowledge them tonight. They may or may not be here. I think some are. Dr. and Mrs. Lenworth and Patricia Johnson, Dr. Wesley Chu, Mr. and Mrs. James and Teresa Atchison, who I know are here. Thank you. Mr. Jay Monago, Dr. and Mrs. William and Catherine Anderson, Mr. and Mrs. William and Sally Windsor, who may be here, and Dr. Starr's family as well. They've given a very nice, significant gift, and Dr. Starr hopes, the family hopes that you might join them in giving a tax-deductible donation, no matter how small or large, it doesn't matter. And tonight only, we are giving a booklet for anyone who donates $1,000 or more. The booklet features Dr. Starr's beautiful work. And so if you haven't seen his exhibition, it's ongoing from now to next Friday, November 3rd. It's going to be, or it is at the Viewpoint Gallery in the UCI Student Center. And Dr. Starr is doing an artist talk tomorrow, Friday, October 27th at 4:30 p.m. So if you're on campus, do stop by. I'm sure he'd love to see you, and we'll find out more about his wonderful artwork. So that's it for me. I'm going to turn this back to Dr. Mozavar, who's going to introduce Dr. Starr and our speaker. So thank you so much, and please come see me if you are interested at all in supporting the endowment.
Thank you, Nancy. So as I was telling the story, when I came here for my recruitment trip in April of 1999, Arnie was one of the people who was going to interview me. And he decided that he was going to interview me at his house in Laguna Beach. And I'm still convinced to this date that the person who was going to drive me to Arnie's house deliberately lost her way. So I got this beautiful tour of scenic coastal South County. And by the end of my first day, I was sold on this place. I said, I actually almost signed on the dotted line saying, I'm coming here. They kept Anaheim away from me. I didn't get to see Orange or Anaheim till the next day. So Arnie actually has been instrumental, but not only that, he's been a great mentor. He's given me some really solid advice over the years. He's also one of the few trainees of Danny Brown left. He's a stellar neurologist. Arnie, would you like to come up here and introduce our esteemed speaker?
Thank you, Tashin. Neurology is replete with the diseases that we all want to cure, but it also has a side of humanity, understanding our souls, why we do things, and that aspect is what I'm trying to develop in choosing the lectureship for this star lecture this year. Donatella Caramia is a wonderful musician and a neurologist who composes and lives in Rome and eats good food. And she and I have worked together for 5 or 10 years on the motor system, and we always talk about what is the role of playing an instrument on facilitating our motor behaviors. And I think this kind of approach to illness is essential because all of us do it and really enjoy it, and I think it impacts people with chronic neurological disease. So I'm going to turn the podium over to Donatella. She's a neurologist from Italy. She speaks Italian very well, and she has a lilt in her English. Come.
It's such a great honor to be here with you all, and thank you, Arnold Starr, thank you, Sandy Steele, Nancy, and your other new friends I met in these days in which we interacted, making this possible, real. For me, is a great moment, a peak in a way, because Arnold Starr has been, for me, a visionary mentor in science. And now I have to add in art. In fact, 10 years ago, I was able to take a sabbatical and come here, not to do research with him any longer in the lab, but in Laguna and on his piano, his Steinway. And I started to compose my first pieces. The first, very first, is called, in fact, America, in honor of the place where I had the inspiration and also the possibility to do that. So we started to talk about the impact of music on the brain. And at that time, so only 10 years ago, everything was very vague. So I shall start now to read a few lines of this great man, Oliver Sacks, great neurologist and writer that probably all of you know. And in his beautiful book called Musicophilia, published in 2008, just the following year of my beginning with music and neurology, he writes this. He says, music has always been one of the first things I look up in an index of any new neurology or physiology textbook. But I could find scarcely any mention of the subject until the 1977 publication of Critchley, Music and the Brain. So then, with his profound humanity, Oliver Sacks tells us many stories about his patients dealing with music and discovering a lot of music in themselves after a trouble, after a trauma. And actually, he started with a very nice one, then that I'll tell you in summary. A very nice story of a doctor, an orthopedic, who had sort of lightning bolt struck his heart during he was talking to his mother in a pay cabin outside in New York at that time. And when he recovered after the blackout he had, he started to hear music all the time and then to compose music, although he was not familiar very much with this issue. So Oliver Sacks starts with this interesting story just to let us know that we might have a lot of music inside of which we are not aware of. So, musicophilia then for Oliver Sacks cannot occur without a brain damage. musicophilia is not passion for music. It's the counterpart of a neurological disease, but it's a nice one. And then he started to say also that we humans are musical species no less than a linguistic one. So this propensity to music shows itself in infancy and lies so deep in human nature that one should think of it as innate. And then later on we discovered that actually there are pieces of the genome that are very linked to that. But of course we know this for our knowledge of the history of music, that there were families where music was transmitted from one generation to another one. So musicophilia is a form of biophilia or biophilia, regarded as our feeling of living things. So such as music is a living thing itself. So then I was so lucky, after having Arnold Starr as a visionary mentor, to have another mentor, but in music, not in neurology, and he was Ennio Morricone. And then we started a long conversation that at the end became a book that we wrote together. And when I asked him about music, he was very, kind of English Italian, because he was very cynical, very detached. He said to me, in theory, we could live without music, but in practice, it is not possible, in my opinion. Let's see why, and especially for me, because I live with music. So it is clear for all of us that music has a central role in human society, because also evokes feelings of relatedness. And it is interesting to see that immediately after the book published by Oliver Sacks came out a very important article published by the group of Montreal, the McGill University, the group of Zatorre that deals with music since many years. And the researcher, a female, did a very important discovery, but I shall take you there. So before saying other things, I want you know that music is not an optional as a cognitive function in our brain. It has to be regarded as a code. So beside language, beside maths, and beside geometry. Because also music is a cognitive code, doesn't mean very much in terms of words. In fact, we sometimes talk about music and we want to attribute a meaning to music, but music has got its own meaning because it has got its own code. So we can translate the meaning of music in a critical way, but it is arbitrary because music is talking about itself. And this is very important because, it encourages this way of absorption very deeply, that all we need to be in a better healthy conditions, and especially we need where we are not feeling well, when and especially we have the disadventure to be affected by neurological diseases that are unfortunately still the most difficult diseases to be treated and cured. Sorry, I left it into Italian. Doesn't matter. So, homo musicus. Homo musicus, why? No? Just in alternative to Homo sapiens sapiens. So this is our DNA in notes. And how many times, as medical students, we have been taught about the DNA formed by 4 bases that they behave like notes and so on. So there is a sympathy between the code of music and the genome as structurally speaking, actually. And also because since we have traces of the man on the earth, we have traces of the music. In fact, Homo musicus appeared, the traces of Homo musicus appeared up to 35,000 years ago. And this is an ancient flute, you can see, with precise holes, with precise interdistance, that speak about the evolution, the men at that time, and women, because I didn't show the picture, but it was found nearby also a little female statue. So it was Homo musicus, Donna musica, who knows? In any case, this little piece of bone speaks about a lot of intelligence and expertise already in this very simple way of playing an instrument. So, and you see the analogy with the larynx is there, as the Homo musicus could understand the inner anatomy without MRI, without X-ray, without echography, a little bit as Arnold Stahl does with his neural scapes. You know, there is, I think, a poetic intuition of our anatomy and physiology that when you are very much inspired, which means concentrated, you can put out for the benefit of yourself and of evolution. So, if we become a little bit more brainy now, we can see in this simple picture that actually there is no part of the brain that is not affected in a positive way. I now treat the positive side by music. You see, at the beginning, of course, we were all acquainted as medical doctors and neurologists and biologists and so on, and also the others. Not indeed in the physical, in the medical culture, that from the ear you then have the sound perceived in your consciousness and discriminated up somewhere. But you see, this is not only that. I mean, you can see, I don't know if I can use this, I think. Does it work? This one? Yes, thank you. So you can see just over the ear there is the auditory cortex, then you have the frontal cortex, is a very large part of the brain, then you have the motor cortex here, the somatosensory primary cortex here, then you have the parietal lobe, and up in the opposite to the eyes you have the occipital lobe for the vision. So, and then you have the little brain, the cerebellum just here, and all these areas are very much connected to the act of perceiving music, to listen to music. The cerebellum especially connected to the act also of playing music, because renders the movements automatic and helps the memory of motor engrams. So, because when you listen to music, you are not just listening, but you can imagine things, you can feel your skin change in temperature, you can feel a frisson or goosebumps. Then what else? Then what else? The most important point is that the most secret part of music impact is just in the very center and core of the brain, which is a large part composed by several nuclei fundamental for experiences, emotions, and is called the limbic system. So, and you see, there are the names. I want you to get familiar with these names. Seems to be boring, but maybe it is interesting. the nucleus accumbens is very important because it gives you the thrill of, the expectation of when you are gambling and you can you can win something, so you put you in this nice, and then you have the amygdala with all the emotions and also fears, and then you have the famous hippocampus. It's famous because it's the cave of the alchemist, in the way that in the hippocampus, the structure which is called, so then I will be able to show you, sorry, a better, I will go backward. Yes, a better picture of the hippocampus is this called so because it resembles just the seahorse. Has got the same shape. And so he's the alchemist because he's able to transform. It's the place where all the memory, the new information is transformed in memory and old memory. So it's a very interesting part. And it is also very interesting for those who are involved in researching about Alzheimer's disease and other form of neurological degeneration. Well, this is just to show you that some years ago, you couldn't see mentioning the inner part of the brain, but only the cortex was mentioned with reference to the impact of music. So the inner part has been only the beginning of mentioning dopamine here, this molecule that is very important because it identifies with music. So dopamine will be our guide on the footprints of music. You see, this is an image more colorful than the previous one that illustrates which part. You see, this is the seahorse, the hippocampus, this is all the limbic system, and this is the cortex overviewing this part. So why do we like music? Because the point is just this one. So music is a code. Music is important. Music is impacting our inner core, our emotional and states and the alchemist of our brain. But why do we like it? So it seems to be just a banal question, Solomonic question, but indeed is important because we discovered why we like it. We like it because through music we have the access to a search of the circulation of this molecule, dopamine, which is the molecule of pleasure, of motor initiation, of motor enthusiasm. So it's a molecule that on one side goes to the pleasure, stimulating pleasure, and at the same moment goes to the motor system, helping the motor will, helping the motor system to get activated and regulated. So the things go together. So would we be able to live without dopamine? No, in fact, unfortunately famous disease is Parkinson's disease, which is due just to the lack of dopamine inside, or can be total lack or reduction of dopamine. And of course, we know that life under this condition is very difficult on many respects, because the person remains just the same with the desires, the will of make new projects, and so on. Is still young, but is not anymore able to control the movements, and especially when they feel blocked, they are really depending on the rest of the world. They are not anymore able to do anything. And they don't know when it happens, because it's not being paralyzed and organized to face it. So how important can be music in these circumstances? I can anticipate that I can repeat it at the end. I'm now experimenting music with them, and I see that it is really helping, because if they go into the mood of being musical, they at least feel better and dare to move. Because also, when this condition starts and remains for a long time, your brain learns to be blocked, because it's not just the brain, but also the brain loves to repeat and repeat and repeat patterns inside, and it's never still. I mean, it's like the ocean. These waves, and so they become affectionate. I mean, real affectionate to the idea also, beside the reality of not be able of moving. But if they try with music to switch in a musical internal environment, they feel better and eventually move. Well, so, addicted to music, yes, we know, especially during, puberty. This is the most adorable things that we can deal with, no? And then is less harmful than other things. In fact, the paths, they really are similar. So, in 2011, Salimpour published this very beautiful paper on nature neuroscience. I remember that morning I saw it, and then I said, I will change my life, because now it is really demonstrated that dopamine induces, music induces dopamine, and dopamine induces pleasure. And then it's not all music, it's the music you like best, like the mother. So the music is like a mother. So you like your mother, or you like your girlfriend or boyfriend. So it's a very important like. No? In fact, how many people love the dear band? No? I was in love with the Beatles, and I can ask each of you, and you were in love with some very good musician when you were 14, 18. So, and then I said, I want to change the direction of my research, because this is something real, concrete, I can work with. And so I just called this famous composer, Ennio Morricone, said, since you like things to be very concrete and real, now have the discovery, and now we have to talk, because I can't write about music without talking with a composer, and I want to talk to the biggest one. So, and he said, come and convince me. So this is the paper, How Do We Get From Music to Pleasure, which is a wonderful title. So, and then you can see that it was discovered that this anatomically distinct dopamine release during anticipation and the experience of peak emotion to music. So, and let me go. Oh, see, yes. So we have some images, and you see we have pleasurable responses to familiar music in the upper panel, and rewarding responses to novel music, which was another paper published 2 years later, because of course the research went on very easily. So, and you can see that there are differences that, if you don't see, I can tell you, because during this positron emission tomography and functional MRI, listeners heard their selected pleasurable piece of music, and they revealed, only in this case, the increased hemodynamic activity in the ventral striatum during peak emotional moments marked by chills. So, and later, the scanning of the functional magnetic resonance revealed that the best predictor of reward value was new music and was the activity in the striatum, particularly in that nucleus accumbens I showed before. Well, this is another image just to remind you this, this is very, I want to tell you this. How I really regard this inner part of the brain. It's not very much neurological, but appeals me in a sense of vision. And Arnie surely understands me because, he does the neural scapes. So I think that this inner part is very important and is very protected because it's all covered up by the rest of the brain. And the cortex, the more superficial part, and also the newest part in phylogenetical terms, which is the cortex, is very plastic and is very flexible and elaborate things, changes, and so on. But this part linked to experience with emotions, to memory, to instincts, to survival, is not so flexible, is rigid. So it's rigid because it's kind of safe, has to be rigid, because in that part there is our history, not in terms of evolution, there is our history in terms of feelings, of potential creativity, of all these things that deal with the possibility of create the new. So the point is that they communicate, in fact, they communicate. But I shall, yes, they communicate. Oh, here we are. And, these are the communication to the rest. These are the paths to the rest of the brain. And you have this mesolimbic pathway that goes, and it's a system in which transits dopamine. Then you have the mesocortical pathway and the nigrostriatal pathway, which is a pathway very important for the movement or the organization of the movement. Organization not voluntary, but under the voluntary control. And then there is another pathway that deals with hypothalamus and pituitary gland, and this deals with survival and all the endocrine and immune system. So you see beside, unfortunately I wanted to show a very nice slide, perhaps I will show in the future when the author will send to me, of a very, very nice description of the limbic system, but I don't have it, Anna, but next time. So this is the substitute. Well, so you see always this interior part, which is rigid. When I say rigid, means that you can't make a deal with your emotion. You can't make a deal. If you are hungry, you are. If you are happy, you are. But music can let you make a deal with it. Because music is what Jung would have called, and perhaps called, this vector, this tool able to lower consciousness and take consciousness and discrimination, cortical discrimination, closer to the emotions. So, and vice versa. So opening up emotion in a way that they could be elaborated and also experienced in their best way. Can be a form of enlightenment sometimes, to know what is really inside our limbic system. Well, coming back to dopamine, we all know this doping, it is clear that dopamine is is the substance. So, but wherever dopamine goes, there goes music. So it is interesting to see that the impact of this is very large, and it is very, very, very well studied. But unfortunately, and Parkinson people knows that, is produced locally and doesn't, crosses very well the blood barrier. And so even the treatment is difficult because of this severe barrage between the rest of the body and the brain, especially with respect to this part, to this very inner part. So also, dopamine can do all these things because it's little and it is a very simple and agile molecule. And so it goes everywhere in the brain. So I can also tell you something. There are moments in which we are very dopaminergic. So we like to act, to embrace people, and especially when we are so active and are in the move of relate to others and embrace people, we are also under the charm of oxytocin, which is a neurotransmitter, is a hormone, very important to social life. And it is there when you listen to music. It's a different though, because while oxytocin is more produced during concerts, you are sitting all together, enjoying our beloved band or music composer, and then we feel related to each other, and then the feeling is like being in this maternal embrace or partner embrace. So it's the hormone of the neurotransmitter of trust and loyalty and affection. So the two together are really good and produce the better neurochemical milieu interior for also receiving new knowledge, new treatment if you are in ill conditions. So you are more receptive because you feel open. And this works. This works because it's very much related to the immune system. This was something I learned by Candice Pert, was the discoverer of the endorphins, the receptors, of opiate receptors. And she was really in this musical oxytocinic framework. And actually, the very last book she published was dealing with this, encouraging people to be aware of how to become more conscious of the pharmacological apparatus, the endogenous drugs, and make the best of it. Well, we all know, more or less, that brain plasticity is something that belongs to this new age of neuroscience. So it has been the word that occurred most frequently in all the papers. And it was a great discovery because we believed that the neural system, the neurons, were perennial elements. But then the first application of all these beautiful instruments like MRI, like transcranial stimulation, evoke potential in general, then we were able to investigate the brain and see that the brain actually recovers continuously. So this is the work of the brain. The brain is never still, it's like the ocean, and then the brain is always under attack, always. And so it's so plastic that from the very beginning, we never know that it's under attack because it compensates, it changes, very versatile. This is just an image, just I don't want to bore you with the details, but you can have a good idea, of what it is. And then also plasticity and versatility, because the brain is up to many things, learns very quick, can forget very quickly as well. But in any case, the point was that plasticity was the password, the keyword for many years, a good one, an excellent one, and also, of course, it was evident for us that some patients were so, in so bad conditions after a stroke, and without giving them other than water, after 3 or 4 weeks, they could recover even fully. So it was clear that the brain was able to repair the damage. And after all this knowledge we accumulated about plasticity and when I say plasticity, what means that the areas, they change, they can do substitutions of other functions, but also I talk about a sort of about geometry of the brain. No? We really became aware of plasticity by mapping the cortical areas and measuring the difference before and after a stroke, or before and after certain training. So, but that was a geometric, the mapping was a geometric superficial survey. Afterward, we became aware of another element, which is not geometry, but is an addition to it, which is topology. So the map is not the territory. And we discovered, actually, that the brain is plastic because it works on changing its connections. So Connectome became the new icon. Then we are going beyond the Connectome. This is the image, very, very nice, I like it, but it's not a human brain, this is a cat brain, maybe I have the human now. And you see, we have on this, this is the connectome, and this is the electric counterpart of the connectome, of all the connections of the brain, and this is an imaging of the cortex. You see, the anatomy of the brain that then becomes pictured, I would use this word, as a connectome. So the connectome, what is it? It's like a big, big tree, an enormous, beautiful tree that is evergreen and is never the same. So it's something that changes by remaining the same. As we do by the act of living and hopefully aging. So the most important, coming back to music, this is something I wanted to show, yes. It is the work of a group, very interesting work, done on children. So these children were exposed to learn an instrument. And these are the images. So they are so clear that they don't need much explanation. They undergo control before learning the instrument, and they repeated the control after. And you can see that there is an increased density of connections. So it is clear that training induces connectivity. So music induces connectivity. So you say, oh, this is obvious, but until you don't say it, it's not obvious at all. So this is important because imagine children that can, I hope normal children will learn an instrument and will learn to play music because it's so beautiful in every respect, but also good for the brain because they can expand the possibility of having more connections. And imagine if you can translate this into the pathology, so in children and also in adults and aged people. So music is something, and in this respect, when I say say music, say in learning how to play an instrument, is something that really has a great impact on our brain and is very easily measured in a short term, because 9 months is not that much. So, this was the interview to Dr. Suarez, and when a child receives musical instruction, their brains are asked to complete certain tasks. And these tasks involve hearing, motor, cognition, emotion, and social skills, which seem to activate these different brain areas. You remember at the beginning I showed that all the brain is affected. So these results may have occurred because of the need to create more connections between the two hemispheres of the brain, which is another issue. It is important to think in a visionary way, to say, how can we really use music and learning an instrument as a way to be more aware of our possibility to cure ourselves when things go wrong, neurologically speaking? Then everybody probably in this audience has experienced the chill of music. How do they come from? Where do they come from? Well, this is another interesting study reflecting that brain connectivity reflects a human aesthetic response to music. And it's very simple to see, because there was a group of people divided in two, one perceiving the chills and the other not. So the yes chill group and the no chill group. And you can see that there is a different connection in the brain, because white matter connectivity between sensory processing areas in the superior temporal gyrus and emotional and social processing area in the insula and medial prefrontal cortex explains individual differences in reward sensitivity to music. So, well, there are a few cases, but there are, of musical anhedonia. When I was doing this, this investigation with Ennio Morricone, he said to me, but you know, not everybody likes music. I said, I never came across, because you are too good. I mean, no, I know, because I can feel this in the people. There are people that are anhedonic. So after years, because this conversation occurred in 2011, this paper was published, and the result was that actually there is less connectivity in those important areas I showed you before. So anhedonia is something which is not the rule, is not normal. Actually, it's something that is not good for the brain. So what can we do? We can encourage these people to love music and to practice an instrument, or at least to sing, because sing would be enough to light the fire of music inside. So, and then there is something else I just mentioned before. Music gives us the possibility of gain a state of absorption, which means that we are always attracted by external goals, things, noise, sounds, colors, whatever, chatters, everything. But we need to seclude in ourselves. We need it because we have a system that has to be practiced, has to be, and this is called the default mode network. So preferred music, the one we like, the one like our mother, boyfriend, or girlfriend, enhances connections between different regions of the brain, activating a pattern called default mode network. And so during this absorption, internal absorption, another network, the task positive, which is involved in goal-oriented activity, is shut down. So what a nice, excellent occasion to restore ourselves and to be able to go into the limbic system in peace is just this occasion is given by music. And I had a beautiful experience with multiple sclerosis patients years ago, starting in 2002, because I noticed that due to the disease, they were always, in a way, captured by external life. And they were always anxious, or they, in the moment they were feeling well during the interval of the remission, we call that remission phase, they were so active that, when I was seeing them, I felt tired myself because they were so, even I had a telephone on my desk and they were saying, no, don't do that, doctor, this is the button. They were overactive. So at that time, I had the intuition to say that music will be very good. But of course, the major part, then I discovered that I had something like 300 patients at that time. Very, very, very few were able to play an instrument. And so I organized a group and I let them sing. So with a teacher, and they met every week and had this singing session. And you can't imagine how better they were after this, how calmer. They really were reborn. So that was very successful. And the singing was carefully chosen also because on their EEG. So we choose a repertoire that could appeal their interest and their attention. Otherwise, they would leave us alone and not participate to the group. So this is important. I've had the experience with multiple sclerosis patients, but it is beautiful as normal people can have the same experience and take profit of this and learning the lesson of being more introverted in a very nice way. Yes, this is the same, more or less, and there are some images you can see. You see the like, the dislike, and the favorites, and you see how the brain areas, they changes with respect to the kind of music they are listening. And connecting, so connecting, we have been talking about connectivity, but is a twofold word, because, connecting is also to be connected, and especially if we think about Alzheimer's patients, this is the most delicate point, because they get disconnected. So this is the great challenge, how to be in touch with them. Now, how can we restore somehow a sort of connection? So connecting, before going toward pathology, so listening to music has the potential to alter, in a good way, the brain network connectivity organization. And so the music preference dictates the connectivity that can be expected. So listening to preferred music, this is important because we have many music therapy classes and doctrines, I would say, but it is important to be aware that the person has to be contacted with the favorite music, the music he likes or she likes. And so also, when we listen to music and the music we like all together, we organize a major level, a better level of synchronization of our brain and of our brains. And in fact, the players in the orchestra, it has been published a very nice article on this, they show more synchronized EEGs. And of course, this is very much expected. Well, this is Ennio Morricone, and the very first question, and so he felt engaged in the work, was, Maestro, where does music come from? Because, you know, music is purely human. I mean, doesn't exist in nature. So we can, the birds, they chirp, the water goes, but no, the roar of the ocean is not music. Music is intended of something that is organized. The sounds are organized in a very human, intelligent way. But where does it come from? So the composer has to say something. So, and he says something. He says music comes from a deep elsewhere that does not exist in reality. So then it is something, because then I thought profoundly. I didn't expect this from a woman so practical, so cynical also in some respects. And so now it makes me think about the famous limbic system, the famous core brain. And so you see here, here's Ennio Morricone, and this is the book we published, and this is a very special music sheet, I mean, because it's special in every respect. This is called Totem, and you know, is the vertical one is lying upon an horizontal scripture. So this is the piano, and this is other instrument. And it's called Totem because it's like Arnold style. He wanted to figure out the totem planted, rooted into the earth. So a form of musical scape, let's say so. And well, what happens here? Sound and image tells what? No, I have to do something. Okay, yes. First of all, yes. Now you shall see. We will see these images. Oh, maybe I can go here. I would like to go backward. Perhaps I can do that. Okay, perfect. And now, there was a meaning, but let's see. Well, I will not ask you how many of you perceive the difference, but I think that many of you did it. Well, so this is the music. So it's given a meaning to the images, his own meaning. So once upon a time in the womb, of course, when we do listen to music first, in the womb, we are already able to hear very early. And the hearing is the function that develops better, just functionally speaking in the womb. And so the voice of the mother, but also the music. And so affects memory already, the limbic system, the intelligence. I used to say that we have mostly an hearing intelligence. And when I talked to Arnie saying that I was exploring non-hearing, the impact of music on non-hearing areas, he said to me that put that hearing in brackets, because which areas is not non-hearing. I said, all right. Well, so all areas are hearing, and I totally agree. And you see here, we have, I really like this, it's always with me, this neuronal intimacy, because it reminds me the work we do in the womb. So the activity, this neuronal intimacy is the intimacy of that part of our life that is so unique that you can invent with your refined imagination and nothing else, and can also be treated with art. Otherwise, it is spoiled. Of course, then we have beautiful ways of seeing the baby in the womb, and all mothers are very pleased. It is very important for health and everything. But look at that. I really feel honored to be, let's say, in the company of Arnie Starr so many times. So we talked about this already. So remember, so music, in my opinion, is a vector of memory. Nothing else. The music and memory, they are different, the two faces of the same medal. Nothing to say more. We know that. And memory, which memory? All sorts. Memory of the past, memory of something that is not very clear in your limbic system, memory of things in your genome is memory. Because music is very complicated. It's a very complicated code, like the others. So it is interesting. This is the last paper I have seen about brain signals of the passage of time, and reminds me the analogy with music. Music is time. It's not only time, it's also space, but it's time. Because music, it's really a measure of time. And so it is also order. So when the brain is disorganized, you can put order in your brain by using music. It's gentler than Kronos or Saturn. It's divinities. So if we ask somebody which is the part of the brain that deals with music, all parts, all sides. And this is something very nice. Left hemisphere versus right hemisphere is a study done with the use of anesthetic and intracarotid propofol procedure, assessing the musical lateralization. So the results in score reading task, when the left hemisphere was anesthetized, so the dominant hemisphere, indicated that the patient only could remember the notes or the iconic representation, but this patient, a female, couldn't recall, whereas she could visually recognize the music score shown. Besides, we would underline that the patient was not able to read the score in encoding conditions since she was aphasic, so was unable to speak, had a problem in that area of the brain. After right hemisphere injection during encoding condition, when the right hemisphere, the non-dominant, the so-called creative hemisphere, was anesthetized, the patient read the music score shown perfectly despite of not singing it. However, during retrieval condition, she couldn't remember it. So this result was highly interesting because all the music syntactic processing, the reading, I mean, was lateralized in the left hemisphere. Singing abilities involved contralateral brain structure. So just to say that with music, you never know what happens in the brain. That is an old one, and of course, the best brain training practice is violin, and you can see that musicians are best listener. Oh, what a pity. I left this in Italian. Well, I'll try. Then I finish. The music of Schoenberg, Kandinsky, the famous painter, writes, introduce us in a new kingdom where experiences, musical experiences, are not acoustic only, but psychic. So, and he says, here begins the music of the future. So, under the inspiration of Schoenberg, Kandinsky makes something very important because he detached his way of painting by the function of copying. And he went nearer to innerscapes. So, and will give us, I mean, who is interested to read this, Dello spirituale nell'arte, means spirituality in art, he proposed this prototype of harmonia in this new concept of painting, where he posed as absolute value the sound, the internal sound of colors and shapes. So we might perhaps go to the very end with a video. Do you? Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Caramia. That was wonderful. We probably have time for maybe one, maximum 2 questions, if you want. Mr. Mel.
This seems like a cop-out, but I'm not sure that it is. I think that when we look at all the many factors that go into brain structure, etc., you realize how complex it gets. It almost borders on spiritual. It's something that occurs to you, Ennio Morricone and others. There's something about this that's almost above the physiological.
This is, a very delicate point, because I didn't want to touch the subject with Ennio at the beginning, because I was very shy and fearful of his reaction. It's so very down to the earth. But then he said, of course, music is transcendence. Well, because we can explore many, 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 many things, but the most important secrets, unfortunately, are locked into the brain and beyond the brain, perhaps. But spirituality is very important, and we know that it is important because it's also that one is a human instinct that goes beyond religion, of course. It's part of our constitution. Just spirituality, I'm totally right. So, yes, music, peace, and transcendence. Certo. Thank you.
There was a second question, I'm sorry. Somewhere? Yes. Yeah.
Interestingly, I never think about this before, but the deaf people from the birth, do they have perception using? And if they don't, do they have any change in the dopamine levels, or is there anything researched or investigated?
I've seen a beautiful movie, and I can suggest everybody to see it. And then I became in love. I fell in love with deaf people. This movie is entitled La Famille Berlier. It's a French movie and deals with the story. Talks about a family of deaf people with one daughter, not deaf, and even very gifted in singing. So it's so beautiful. And then I learned that deaf people, they love, and they love to be deaf. But I know, now we know, because they are in this default mode network, and this self-absorption is so pleasurable. And I think that is so dopaminergic as well. So the point is that I would like in the future, it might be possible, with Arnie, I would have dreamed to do something like that, to investigate the impact of something that is like music, but is their own music, because music is there. Music is mathematical, is there. It's not expressed in sound, maybe in deaf people, but in another form. Thank you for this. Yeah.
Thank you. We should probably stop here. I have a little presentation for Dr. Caramia. Dr. Starr, if I may ask you to join me out here. Maybe we can move.
Yes, just.
So, Annie, this is a plaque that we're going to give to Dr. Caramia as the 7th annual Star Lecture. Thank you for bringing her out here.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Dr. Caramia is also giving neurology grand rounds tomorrow, so there will be an opportunity. And then in the afternoon, at the painting exhibition, she's also performing in the afternoon tomorrow. So those. We are not?
No, not before.
I heard rumors that you maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah. That's what
But the maybe is so big.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I'm told that you're playing piano.
Yes, but you know.